I hope everyone had a great August and got a lot of great reading in. I feel like my reading was kind of slow even for me. I don't know if it's the books I read or if it's simply because I was a little bit busier and then unfortunately ended up sick for the last like 5, 6 days of August. But it wasn't bad. I enjoyed the reading I got done. So let's talk about it. Hi, hello, welcome in. I'm Jerica, and I'm an editor, writer, and all-around content creator. And you've stumbled into, or maybe were seeking out, my August reading wrap-up. I'm currently working through my physical TBR, which consists mostly of books that have been sitting on my shelf for a decade or longer. In August, I set out to read The Unbearable Lightness of Being by Milan Kundera, Crime and Punishment by Fydor Dostoevsky, and a few short stories from Dubliners by James Joyce. Other than the fact that my reading was a little bit slower this month, I don't have any overall thoughts, so let's just get into what I thought about the books I did read. I'm going to start with Dubliners and the couple of short stories that I read from this. I think it's going to be a relatively short talk. I read Araby and A Painful Case, and neither of these really excited me in any way, and I feel kind of bad saying that. Honestly, I have to go back and see what A Painful Case was. Hold on. Which, of course, doesn't really bode well for the story. It didn't really stick with me. I have a vague recollection of Araby. I literally have no recollection of reading this. Maybe I didn't read it. Oh. Okay, so I'm vaguely remembering this one now. My guy. This isn't even like him. Where are you going? Are you gonna cause trouble up there? Yeah, so I almost would have to read this again to tell you what I thought about it. This one, I think, of the two stories that I read, is the one that I enjoyed more, despite the fact that I'm not really remembering it at all. Um, but it has to do with an affair and kind of like um an affair and like regret, but not necessarily regret of the affair, but regret of like breaking it off as well. And then the other one was Araby. Like I feel bad. I feel like I don't really understand the point of Araby. Again, let me check it out again, because I feel like I remember kind of like what happens, but I don't remember the end, and therefore I feel like I don't remember the purpose of the story. I don't know if it will remind me. Um, and I think part of my problem is that I'm coming off of reading short stories from Wilderness Tips by Margaret Atwood as far as short stories go, and those ones were just so much more um like shocking, I guess. That was the word that I kept using. They had a lot more there was another word that I ended up coming up with, and it was a much better word, and I can't remember it again. So thank you, brain fog. I don't know if you can tell. I'm still the couple of days of sickness that we'll talk about a little bit more when I get to the book that I'm currently reading instead of having finished. I'm a little sick still. Um, yeah, I feel like I'm missing the point of the stories in this one. And that feels really weird to me. If you watched my September TBR, you know that this is still my short stories collection. Based on how my reading's going, I don't know if I'm actually going to get to read any more out of it this month. But I want to try some of the ones that were mentioned in the blurb instead of the two that I did read, which weren't, because they do sound interesting, and I feel like maybe I picked, like, a couple of the, like, dud stories. Because, like, not everyone can be a banger. Hello, second cat. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I missed something on this one. But I'm gonna keep trying it. I'm not gonna, like, Canby, if you could not chew on that cord, that would be great, and not click buttons on the mouse. Canby! Stop. Our kitten is a cord chewer, and we're gonna have to figure out how to fix that. It was never an issue with Iggy. Canby! Say hello to the people. No? Okay, well, at least he'll stop chewing that cord for a bit. So, like I said, I don't have a whole lot to say about it. I might end up cutting a bunch of that out. Because I feel like I need to give it more of a chance, because I think I picked the wrong stories. I think maybe I should read... I think I should read The Sisters next. Maybe I just read The Sisters, Two Gallants, and then The Dead, and we'll see what happens with that. So we're not gonna DNF it. I find it kind of difficult to, like, DNF a short stories collection, I think, because each short story is going to be different. But at the same time, like, they're collected together for a reason. So... Ooh, that scared me. They're collected together for a reason, so, like, if I read, like, I don't know, a third of the stories and they're not doing it for me, I'll probably not read the rest unless I see, like, a review or someone mention that, like, this particular short story is really good. So let's move on to the first novel that I read, which was The Unbearable Lightness of Being by Milan Kundera. This one I really, really enjoyed. I do feel like it took me longer to read it than I was expecting. And I'm not really sure why. It wasn't a super difficult read. The structure of it is really interesting. Just because it does a little bit of, like, flipping back and forth, not like Iggy. Not like an actual, like, timeline, really, but it, like, revisits events from different perspectives, and I kind of really enjoyed that. Because you got, like, slightly different pieces. It's not literally from a different perspective, because we're not actually watching through the character's eyes, if I remember correctly. And then there's a couple of other things that are kind of interesting, where, there's a lot of, like, talking to the reader. Guys, please. I just want one recording where you guys don't fight at some point during it. Playing's great. They're not really fighting. The big boy's just grumpy. He doesn't like being startled, and the kitten's very good at startling him. Go get him, Canby. There's quite a lot of, like, talking to the reader, and I could understand not enjoying that, but I think it really works for this book. Because this book isn't... It's extremely character-driven, in the sense that the plot is not particularly linear, and it really, like, you really focus in only on things that matter for character, like, expression and development. And the plot isn't... Like, you get endings throughout. Like, different people's endings happen throughout, and then they get revisited in different ways. It's a really interesting book. Just, like, structure-wise. I think that's kind of what I have to say, but, I think I started saying this and I got distracted. It's, like, very philosophy-based. Like, The Unbearable Lightness of Being is, like, a concept that is then examined throughout. The comments are gonna get mad at me again for not giving you my full attention. You know that? They give me trouble when I don't pay attention to you. Are you aware of this? You make me look like a bad cat mom. Yeah. You make me look like a bad cat mom. Lunch is in like 40 minutes. Like 43 minutes. um but yeah, definitely a book that I think I would reread, because I think there's a lot that gets missed, especially because it does that kind of like revisiting events. And also there's a couple of things that you're like, did that actually happen? And there's one thing in it that, for the full review of the book, when I get around to it, which I'm gonna try to like step up, get it, but I'm currently reviewing books that I read like a while ago. So once I catch up on that, I think I'll be able to keep up with full reviews, at least the books that I feel deserve a video, if that makes sense. But there's a thing that's mentioned in this that I feel like I need to research and see if it's a real thing, but it would be wildly spoilerish, so I won't tell you what it is. This is kind of just me dropping the hint that when I go to do the full review in the spoilers section, we will discuss it. So if you really like The Unbearable Lightness of Being, or you're just very intrigued by my extreme vagueness, make sure, subscribe, hit the bell, whatever, you know how to remember to come back for a video. And so then we come to Crime and Punishment by Fydor Dostoevsky, which is a bit of a chonker as far as books that I generally read. I'm definitely kind of like a 250 to 400 page book reader. And this one is over 600 pages, which... Oh, it's not... Okay. That's a bit of a lie, because the last couple pages are notes, and also it only goes to 601, but it's basically 600 pages. So it is a bit of a chonker from what I usually read, which is why I only had 2 real books on my TBR for last month. Unfortunately, again, because we ended up having a lot of like events, like family events, and like just going out and doing stuff this month, which is great. I love going out and seeing people, but it did kind of like mess with my reading routine. And then also, like I said, I have been a little under the weather, so the last like 5 or 6 days of the month, I just did not really read a whole lot. Not none, but not a lot. And it was definitely like slower going just because of like brain fog and whatnot, so I'd have to like reread a little bit more. It was a little less enjoyable. That being said, I am really, really enjoying this book, and once I'm done it, I will include the last it's probably like the last third in the September wrap up. I will try to remember to do that at least. Otherwise, I will definitely be doing a full video review and discussion on this book. But it's not exactly what I was expecting based on the little bit that I knew going in, because we know from the... Where's the dust jacket? We know from the description that we're going to be following a man who murders somebody. Yeah, it says the only rational way out, it appears to him, is to murder Alyanova Ivanovna, a disagreeable old pawnbroker whose existence he has decided is pointless. And I get, now that I read it again, I realize that I was kind of expecting the wrong thing, but yeah, so I'm trying to decide what's considered spoilery here, because I mean it tells you that he thinks he needs to murder someone. So yeah, I think that's too spoilery to talk about it, even though it's in there. Um, let's just say the reasoning isn't exactly what I was expecting. But it was a very pleasant surprise once I got far enough in to kind of understand what this book was actually going to be. The same way that The Unbearable Lightness of Being was very philosophy heavy, I feel like this one is very philosophy heavy as well, kind of like philosophy, psychology. And it is doing the examining of a man. Guys. Oh, I was talking about how it's definitely reflecting on, like, the internal thoughts and struggle of someone who is going to and has murdered a person. But again, not quite the way that I was expecting it to go because the reasoning is so different from what I was expecting. This particular this is going to be a weird thing to say, but this particular edition seems to have quite a few typos in it, which never really stops me. Typos generally don't stop me from reading something. It really has to be like the writing style that gets to me, like poor sentence structure, not like a wrong letter, but there are a lot of wrong letters. There are a couple of spaces that don't belong. It's been there were a couple pages in a row that had typos on them, and I was just like, So, and I mean, I don't. So that because this is a translation as well, this is translated by somebody different than another edition might be translated by, which is like a thing that like I'm probably never going to read a different edition unless for some reason I get rid of this or it gets damaged and I choose to reread it. But generally I keep the books that I like until I have to get rid of them for some sort of reason, and there's no reason that I could foresee getting rid of my books that I like. So I am a little curious about some word choice. There's one word that's used like 3 times in as many pages, and it feels like one of those like weird words that like really stands out. Again, like not a reason to put it down because like the story and otherwise the writing is really good. There's an interesting thing that I noticed that I feel like we do less of now just in general, and that is he will kind of like describe the scene and like the whole scene as far as like time goes, and then we'll have the dialogue. And that isn't to say that there isn't action and description within the dialogue, but I have an example of this in my notes, so we'll look at an actual example of it in the full video. We will look at an example of it, but it'll be like, it'll like describe the scene, like what it looks like, what everybody looks like, and then it'll be like, and by the end of the conversation, so-and-so feels like this, and then you'll read the conversation. And I just think that's really interesting, because I feel like we have such a push now for having all of that exposition, like, in the action, rather than having exposition and then action, as if dialogue is action, which of course it is. I found it really interesting to like see description of the future and then read to the future. That was like an interesting like narrative structure thing that I noticed. Even though I'm only 2/3 of the way through, I am just going to say that this is another book that I've really enjoyed. I might be a Dostoevsky fan. It does mean that I will have to read the brothers Karamazov. I should look it up. Karamazov or Karamazov. Because that's another one of the Dostoevsky books that like everybody's read or whatever. I feel like Notes from Underground, the one that I talked about before. I don't know if I've ever heard somebody. I've heard of one other person who's like read it not because they were in my university class. um, and in case you like weren't here for the last one, I kind of expect that you weren't here. In fact, I'm not a person who like picks an author and reads a bunch by that author. I really like read a book and then a book and then a book kind of thing. Um, this might be the first time that I've read a book, like a second book by an author, that wasn't because it was part of a series. Or sorry, no, this is the second time because I've read books from 2 series by Pierce Anthony. But other than that, it's always been like I've read like 1 series or like 1 book by an author. So maybe Dostoevsky is, gosh, maybe Dostoevsky is that author where I'm gonna go and I'm gonna read like his full library? What do you call it? It's a discography when it's a musician. Is it just a library? Is there a word for that? Tell me in the comments if you know that there's a word for that. I might just look it up after, too. Alright. I'm clearly fading as far as my ability to talk, unfortunately. This one I feel like was a little less valuable than some of my other wrap-ups and stuff. I do apologize for that. It's also coming out late, which I apologize for. I really wanted to get it out on the 1st. But I'm still on the mend. Hopefully editing Jerica can make it shine. Yeah, I think that's it. So let me know how your reading went this month. Maybe your August was also a little slow. Maybe it was a thing that happened for all of us. Maybe it was the weather. Maybe it was the vibes of the end of summer coming in. But definitely let me know what you got up to. In addition, there will be another sort of wrap-up coming up, hopefully by next Wednesday. We do have one more video coming out before that, which I think will probably be later than it's expected. But we have a book review coming up later this week, which needs to be recorded still. But there is another wrap-up coming, and it's going to be kind of like an end of summer wrap-up, and it's going to be more than just my reading. So, of course, I will talk about kind of like I think I have like my top 3 reads for the season, which we're doing May through August for it. Usually, like from here on out, I'll probably do 3-month increments, for seasons, because that's how it works. But this is the first one, and I started this whole dang thing in May, so that's what we're gonna do. But we're also gonna talk about, business updates, fun life things that I've done, my writing, some other hobbies that I have. So if you're into crochet or hiking, there's gonna be some tales of those. I think it'll be an interesting kind of just like get to know me a little bit more and what I've done over the summer, what I'm looking forward to, what you can expect for the next season, and I would love to hear about yours as well. But hold on to those. Just tell me about your reading, but hold on to everything else for that video. Yeah, so if any of that sounds interesting, do the things to make you come back for the next video, subscribe, dingle the bell. Dingle it? Yes, sure. Dingle the bell. Maybe that's what I call it from here on out. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I had a blast. Catch you next time. Bye! Don't look at my sweatpants. Why are you walking like a tightrope, Candy? Like, there's a whole shelf for you to walk on.